I thought that it would be so much fun if I take you through the process of how I get inspired to make every quilt that I make. A lot of times fabrics or quilt patterns don't make the cut, in my mind anyways, for me to go through all of the work of the process of making the quilt. I do certain things along the way to make sure that everything is quilt worthy before I even attempt to cut into my pretty fabric. Enough talking already. Let's get busy getting inspired. Now, it's not always that fabric inspires me first. Sometimes the pattern will, but in this case, for this quilt that I'm going to soon be making, the fabric totally inspired me. I was watching another quilt channel, and I'll post it right here. This YouTuber was showing this beautiful fabric, and immediately I had a connection with that fabric. I was like, yeah, that fabric, it's mine. I immediately got online and bought the full fat quarter bundle. It is an older fabric line, but I was able to get it. I'll post all that info down in the information box below this video. Once I received the fabric and I saw it in person, I was blown away. It is absolutely darling. Oh my word. So win-win. Once I knew exactly what the shades were of the pinks and different things, I went to the store and then I purchased some extra yardage in coordinating fabrics. Now at this point, I don't even know what my pattern's going to be yet for my quilt, but I do know that I want to make sure that I have some coordinating fabric. And with all this beautiful springy summer fabric, I knew that I was going to have a lot of negative space. So that's why the white. And I thought either of these two could be great for a big border or even binding. I was kind of thinking ahead on that one. The hardest part for me next was finding a pattern for this beautiful fabric. I still want the fabric to shine, but I want the pattern to be really cute too. The pattern for this quilt needed to be simple, but yet striking. Don't we all want that in our quilts, right? Sometimes I don't have a lot of fabrics to work with, and sometimes I have an abundance. In this case, I have a ton to work with, which means things can get quite busy if you don't tame them down with your pattern, depending on who you are and what you like. I decided ahead of time as I was thinking about this quilt that I wanted some type of a checkerboard type quilt or 4-patch quilt or something to that effect. So I went to the internet, like we all do, right? You know, you go to the internet for inspiration. At least I hope you do, because there's a ton of inspiration online. I typed in checkerboard quilts and a ton came up, and I typically hit for images to see what different things are out there to gain more inspiration on what this quilt should look like. You can see here there's a ton of quilts. So as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, checkerboard effect, negative space, 4-patch. I thought, okay, so I can take 4 patches and then make a block next to it white for my negative space that I love, and then another 4-patch different, and so on and so forth, giving it an overall big checkerboard look. That's what I'm thinking anyways. To make sure my thoughts are all in line, I then put it on paper. Using some graph paper and a pencil, I can literally see what I see in my mind. I can now put it on paper and see it here. So you can see here in my drawing that I went with the 4-patch and then a white fabric, 4-patch white fabric, and then another 4-patch. That 4-patch, I wanted it to be 4.5 inches, all sewn together. In doing that, you can use a jelly roll with this, or you can use a charm pack with this. In my case, I have fat quarters, so I'll be cutting some of my fat quarters up into 5-inch squares, sort of like a charm pack. I have a specific technique in mind that I want to use for that 4-patch, so that's going to be fun. The only thing I haven't decided yet is whether or not I want, within the 4-patch, if I want both darks to be the same or if I want both lights to be the same. I'm thinking I want to switch that up to make it a different dark contrasting to a different dark. I don't know. That one's still on the fence. So when I write this down, I can see that to get the size I want, I'm going to need 15 of those 4.5-inch blocks across, and I believe 17 down. And then I can add a border in if I want, or I can take an extra block off around the edge. I'm not sure yet. I never know until I get to that point. In this next step, you may think I go way overboard in checking whether or not this quilt is going to be quilt worthy of this fabric or not, but I'm going to show you anyways. In this next step, we're going to do mock-ups. Nobody likes to do mock-ups, and I'm not sure why. I am a total advocate for mock-ups. Remember when I had said that I wasn't sure if I wanted both to be dark or both to be the light? I think I've decided against this particular look. These squares still need to be cut down to 4.5 inches, but you can kind of get an idea there. So you can see here, I made a mock-up of all the same. And since I've decided, I think, to go 2 separate darks, I need to make a mock-up just to make sure it's gonna work. Here I'm going to take a 5-inch dark piece and a 5-inch light piece. I'm going to lay them right sides together. I'm going to pin 1, 2, 3, 4. So a 1/4 inch down this side and a 1/4 inch down this side. I do back stitch. Turn it around and now sew the other side, just the opposite of this side. Take the pins out. You should end up with this tube, right? I'm going to sew up this one real quick. This is a different dark compared to the other one that we just sewed, and we're going to put right sides together with another white piece. One thing I can't get over with my brand new machine is that it sews a perfect straight line. It doesn't take much work to do it either. I thought I was a crooked sewist until I started sewing on this Juki. I'm like, hey, I'm not that bad. We know that these are 5-inch blocks. So all I have to do is measure 2.5 inches to the center. And this one should measure 2.5 inches as well. And it does. Make sure that you're cutting the right middle. You want this top and bottom piece to be open. So these are the sewn sides. 2.5 inches. And just for GP, I'm going to check this one because I have issues. Okay, perfect. It's your preference. Press open or press to the side. I'm going to press open. For this technique, you're going to take the 2 pieces that are not the same, flip the one so that the dark piece is opposite it, flip them right sides together. This glue stick is for sewing. You can also use Elmer's stick glue, same identical thing, seriously, so keep that in mind. So you're just going to simply mark the glue right there on the end and then push this so that it's together. Shift it this way, lift this up, take my glue stick and just a little bit. It'll be hidden in the seam allowance anyways. Press that together. That glue will stabilize that for us, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch down both of those sides. We know that that is 5 inches that way, so we're going to go 2.5 over, just like we did before. So now if you remember, I want 4.5 inches, and this leaves no room for air, which is actually kind of cool for me right now in my quilting journey because I'm really trying to be more precise. Just a little shaving off the side will get that straight. Here are my mock-ups right here on the screen. I can place things a lot of different ways. You know, with quilting blocks, you can just place them all kinds of different orientations and get a totally different look, and these are no different. One other thing I'm possibly going to do, cutting some of those large floral fabrics into a 4.5-inch square of its own and placing it in. Here's an example here. One of my main goals is to feel confident into cutting into my pretty fabric that I spent a ton of money on. Once I feel confident, I start cutting and I never look back, and I enjoy the quilt and I love the quilt. The next step in the process for me is to figure out how many pieces I need to cut for which block. And then it will be time to sew it up all together, and that's a whole different strategy in itself. I mean, yeah, it's crazy sometimes when I think about it, but that is my technique and method to get through my quilting process. Let me know in the comments what your process is. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care